Yes, it's been another roller coaster week on the political front as Canada avoided U.S. tariffs for now. The uncertainty continues, and Premier Scott Moe has called for bringing Canada's border security under military control. Also, the threats from President Donald Trump are ushering in a Buy Canadian movement and prompting a wave of patriotism. But will that last? Plus, an old battle line between the province and federal government over funding for vulnerable Indigenous students flared up this week. And to discuss all of that, we've called in the 306 Public Affairs panel. Jack Saddleback is a professional speaker who formerly ran for a federal NDP nomination. And Dale Richardson is principal at Earnscliffe Strategies and a former political staffer with the Saskatchewan Party. Good afternoon, Jack.
Hey, Dante.
And hello, Dale.
Hey.
So, guys, it's hard to believe that it's been just 4 days ago when President Trump agreed to hold off imposing that 25% tariff on Canadian goods for 30 days. That decision was made after Prime Minister Trudeau, of course, agreed to reinforce the border and stem the flow of fentanyl. Meanwhile, Premier Moe called for Canada's border security to be put under military control to address those issues. Jack, I'll just start with you. What are your thoughts on all of that?
Well, first off, his administration has been in power for, two and a half weeks. I've gotten so many gray hairs since then. And like as much as I want to joke about what's been going on, it has been super serious. And what proposals have been put forth, what type of sayings have been coming out from the president, and most of this has been coming out through social media posts, which, I mean, I said this before when we first started this public affairs panel, I like when my politics is boring. I like when I don't have to worry what is happening at the political level because I trust that folks are stepping into those checks and balances. Unfortunately, we are in this time where those checks and balances are a little uncertain, as you said, and are a little chaotic. And what I can say is that it is uncertain. It is feeling kind of that anxiousness, but at the same time, as folks who are interested in politics, as folks who really thrive on the ability of seeing where our political landscapes kind of fall within the public purview, that it's also a little bit of an exciting time. And I don't like to say that because I want it to be a boring time. But right now I'm feeling just that.
Dale?
I mean, crazy week, crazy days, crazy time. I don't want to say crazy president because I think, President Trump just wouldn't care. The Monday, the weekend and then Monday, the clients that I work with at the firm that I'm with were very concerned about what was going to happen on Monday. Things or whatever day that was, Sunday or Monday. Mm-hmm. And thankfully there's been a pause put in place, but I don't think that anybody is feeling happy about that. It's a pause and people are very concerned about, okay, what happens when we get to the end of the 30 days? What happens then? I think maybe the good thing is that President Trump seems to move on to the next thing pretty quickly. And there's been a lot of talk this week about, well, that's part of his strategy is to, flood the zone, so to speak, and just put so many things out there that the Democrats or his opponents, they can't choose just one issue because there's so many things. I mean, the guy moved on to taking over the Gaza Strip. Which is a pretty bizarre and pretty out there idea. My God, what an insane time we live in, Peter.
Let's talk about the response. Obviously, Canada is going to invest more into border security. Saskatchewan's going to play a role in that. So the government announced plans to add, additional police officers. They're drawing from other departments. They're going to allocate more police equipment to the area, like drones and 3 surveillance airplanes. Dale, it's interesting because we know there's a very small amount of fentanyl crossing the Canada border into the U.S., especially compared to Mexico, right? It's minuscule compared to Mexico. So are these extra resources really worth, billions of dollars and all the effort that we're going through?
Unfortunately, I'm going to have to say yes, because if that ultimately results in tariffs not being put on Canadian goods, then fine.
You had no other choice.
Yeah, no other choice. I mean, it needs to be done. Having said that, I think a lot of people, including myself, really question if Donald Trump and his team down south if they really think that the northern border is an issue in terms of fentanyl, in terms of, people crossing the border where they shouldn't be. In many ways, I think it's smoke and mirrors. But if we have to do these things to get what we need to keep the potash moving down south and keep oil and gas flowing down south, and the things that we grow and make going to the U.S. without penalty, then whatever, fine, great.
Jack, do you have any thoughts on what's happening at the border?
Our border has actually been unmilitarized for about 200-ish years. That is a long time between two countries, which have, for many generations been considered neighbors, friends, and chums, pals, well, whatever you want to call us. And I do agree that this political dance that's taking place is going to be one of finesse, where we will have to move in some situations, i.e. with the border and some of the security measures that were already kind of proposed by the federal government and now are just happening with what is being proposed further. I do think that our government needs to also address some of the social challenges that will come out of all of this. We're going to have a rise in stigma further around fentanyl use and substance use for folks within our own country. We are going to see militarization certainly ramp up, and I think that also comes with a fine line of yes, I think we have to invest a little bit more when it comes to our own military and upgrading things. At the same time, we also have to invest in our own social programs, because we are now stepping into a time where our economic stability is going to be a little up in the air. So we need those social nets to be able to ensure that folks are not feeling the rise in mental health, they're not feeling the rise in employment, unemployment, and so many other things that are unfortunately going to be on the horizon, I think.
Well, people definitely have strong feelings about President Trump. That's nothing new. But, with these tariff threats, we talked about, booing at sporting events. Dale, just how are you feeling about our American neighbors these days?
It's not so much the neighbors. I mean, I have a number of friends that live in America. One of my best friends, he lives in California. I love him very much. I'd like to go down and see him. But this week, we, at least in our household, we decided, well, at least I said
You decided. Yeah.
I said, no, I didn't decide. I said out loud in our house to my wife, and I don't know if she agreed or not, but I said, I don't want to go to the U.S. anytime soon. I don't want to take our money down there and spend it to spend time in their country. And it sounds like a lot of people are thinking about doing that as well, or they've canceled trips to Florida or to California or Texas, Arizona. That's what I'm planning to do. I don't, maybe we'll talk about booing the national anthem. I don't really support that so much. I'd rather just not give Americans very much of my money if I can.
Jack, what about you?
Well, this actually happened during Trump's first presidency back in 2016. As an international public speaker, I do get requests from pretty much all over the world, and quite often it does come from the States. So during his first presidency, I had to sit down and question, do I want to be able to support this particular government or this administration during their term? And unfortunately just pulled back and chose very wisely when and when not to support the American economy through that matter. Now, we are in a much different time. This is they're now reaching over the border and trying to impose these tariffs upon us. Back when 2016, that wasn't necessarily a big matter of discussion around the kitchen table. But as Dale was also sharing, within my own family circles and community circles, this is a big point of discussion. How can we show to our friends, our families, our neighbor down south that what's happening down there, the millennial in me is saying that's not cool. right? We have our trans folks, our trans community members are being directly attacked by what's happening in this administration. And the best that we can do on the Canadian side is trying to create a safe space where we can. And number two, not to give our economic, prowess to this administration.
Jack, I want to jump on that, and because I was going to ask you guys just about how this the idea of patriotism fits into Saskatchewan politics, but I think we can come back to that next time you're in. But Jack, you mentioned that Donald Trump yesterday signed an executive order to ban trans women from competing in women's sports. Do you think policies like that might be coming to Canada or Saskatchewan?
It's a very slippery slope. Within Canada, we have seen a considerable rise since 2016 and just a little bit earlier than that due to some of the politics that have leaked up from the United States. We have seen a considerable rise in hate crimes within Canada due to a person's gender identity, gender expression, and sexual orientation. When we're looking at Trump's executive signing of banning trans women from sports, that is something that actually resonates in some communities here in Canada. Even within the Conservative Party, there have been pushes at the National Convention to look at trans rights. And I just want to encourage people to become aware of what is happening in the States for trans individuals. We are being systematically erased from spaces in that administration. They're scrubbing the ability for people to have gender marker changes and name changes, so people's driver's license and passports are not coinciding. They cannot have that freedom of mobility. They are then being put into spaces that could fire them from their own jobs or apply for any jobs if they don't have identification that says what their names are from what they were assigned at birth versus what they are now and who they are now. So it's a very tumultuous time for the trans and two-spirit community and gender nonconforming community. And I think Canada can do a lot to ensure that we are standing with and standing up for this community in whatever way that we can.
Before we let you guys go, there was a story that came up yesterday, and it's about education funding for Indigenous students. Saskatoon Public Schools said it's ending contracts for 80 educational assistants because it hasn't received federal funding for a program that helps vulnerable First Nations students. They admitted that maybe they didn't plan as well as they could have, obviously. The money wasn't there, but they wanted to be able to offer these services. The federal and provincial governments, Dale, they're both pointing fingers at each other. Whose responsibility is this?
I think it doesn't matter. I think the point is that this is bad for kids, for the students at the schools. And maybe, I mean, you got pretty close to saying it there, Peter. I feel like the people running the school division should be the ones that are fired, not the people that they're laying off. I mean, the other school divisions seem to be managing, because I think some divisions also didn't get the funding in time, or it hasn't shown up yet, and they've just said it's fine. I mean, we have stopgaps and we have surplus to deal with this. So I'm not quite sure what's going on in the Saskatoon school division. It seems like they're the only ones with the problem, and yeah, it's too bad. Really too bad for the kids.
Jack, on the flip side of that, NDP education critic Matt Love said the provincial government should be working with school divisions and the feds, obviously, to ensure divisions are properly funded. We've talked about this many times. Just how do you feel about this particular program and these recurring issues in schools?
Jordan's Principle is a very important program to be able to step in when those disputes between governments happen. The thing about this particular situation is that education does fall within provincial jurisdictions, and we have to remember that education should be adequately funded by the provincial government. We have to also look at the historical funding that has happened via education in our province, which unfortunately has gotten cuts year after year after year. Understanding, we've gone through many challenges within our province where we've had to make some tough decisions. But those tough decisions now lead us to where we are in this point in time, where these 80 professionals should have been funded a long time ago via some creativity within the provincial side of things, but now we're seeing it come down to a patchwork where the public school division is trying their best with whatever they can. And certainly they are throwing whatever, spaghetti noodles at the wall to see what sticks. And it's unfortunate that they've had to look at different avenues to be able to get those educational assistants. And I really want to be able to see some solutions take place within this, because at the end of the day, Dale, you said it right, the kids are the folks who are going to be losing out within this whole matter.
Jack, Dale, great conversation this week. I loved it. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for saying that, Peter. Yeah, great.
Yeah, thanks.